Our underreported stories segment tonight. Once again, President Trump and his own State Department are at odds. Recently, President Trump announced the U.S. would recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. But the State Department, led by Rex Tillerson, is bucking President Trump's policy and might refuse to recognize Jerusalem as part of Israel on passports and maps. With me now to break this down from the Washington Free Beacon, Adam Kredo. Adam, good to see you.
Good to be with you. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. You're welcome anytime. All right, Adam. Despite recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which we have, the United States has as a policy, the State Department may not put Jerusalem on maps in Israel or on passports that say you were born in Jerusalem, Israel. Why not?
Yeah, you know, we're working with something here that I like to refer to as pretzel logic, and it's something we see from the State Department quite often, especially when it comes to issues like Israel. What they're saying right now is that they recognize the reality that Jerusalem is Israel's capital and the seat of its government. But when asked quite clearly, where is Jerusalem located? The State Department cannot give you an answer. They will not say it is located in Israel. That's because deeply embedded in the State Department is a long-standing policy of, one, hostility towards Israel, and two, really a problem with recognizing Jerusalem itself as part of Israel, which is why they worked against President Trump's decision. They tried to stop it and stymie it at every turn. Also, the DOD tried to do this as well, the Pentagon. But essentially what the State Department is saying is that while we have to go along with what the president is saying, we don't actually have to fully implement it. So that means that if you're an American citizen and you're born in Jerusalem, your passport will not list Jerusalem, Israel. If you have a map or an official travels to Jerusalem, it will not say Jerusalem, Israel. The State Department's stance continues to be that they have no position on the sovereignty of Jerusalem itself, that's a issue for negotiations between the Israelis and Palestinians. And I think it's not really fully implementing the will of the White House here.
Right. So two questions here. First of all, what's the point in recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel if you're just doing so in a speech? Why do it if it's not going to be implemented by your State Department?
Well, the White House really dragged the State Department along on this. I think that at the top levels from Tillerson, of course, he was forced to make the phone calls to Arab leaders and say that this is what they're going to do. But I know very well from multiple sources who spoke to me about how this decision was made and the groundwork leading up to it, that the State Department was very oppositional. They did not want to see this take place. So what they're doing now is trying to be what they would call nuanced, and again, what I call pretzel logic, twisting and turning to not actually have to fully implement the president's will. So that will include things like official documents, maps, and of course passports, not actually saying Jerusalem, Israel, because they don't want to say that Israel owns Jerusalem.
Right, and this seems to me very odd because the State Department is part of the executive branch. The president is literally their boss. He manages the executive branch of our government. What he says should be the policy of the entire executive branch. So first of all, who made this decision? Was this Tillerson? And where does he get his authority to just unilaterally declare a policy that differs from the president of the United States?
Sure, I would say that the buck always stops with Tillerson. He is the Secretary of State, but really this comes from State Department lawyers and entrenched diplomats that work in a bureau called Near Eastern Affairs, NEA. And the NEA Bureau has been a hotbed of anti-Israel activity for decades, as is the wider State Department. I think that's well known. And their policy has been that if we actually recognize the reality on the ground, that is saying to the world that Jerusalem is Israel's capital and Jerusalem is in fact located within the state of Israel, that this will somehow demolish the region. And I think what we've seen is that despite protests, the Middle East has not burnt because of this. Arab leaders have actually been relatively quiet, which I think is a major noteworthy thing to say here about this. Yes, the Palestinians are on the street. Yes, there have been some riots. But if it was not this issue, it would have been riots over something else. I think that the Palestinian Authority has treated this like the U.S. must give in to its threats, that if you do not do what we want you to, we will protest and riot and spark violence. And I think the Trump administration very accurately has assessed the situation and said that, look, we understand it's going to inflame tensions, but in the long run, this is going to be the right thing to do.
Well, listen, it's not like the Middle East is a flower bed, a flower garden of peace as it is. It's already falling apart every which way. There's conflict everywhere you look over there. It's not like it's sparked by President Trump saying, oh, yes, we're going to change the sign on our consulate to read embassy, and then everything's going to go up in smoke. No, it's already in flames. He didn't have anything to do with it. Last question. This was part of your original article reporting on this. You said the State Department actually gave you as an explanation. They said, and I quote here, the specific boundaries of Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem are subject to final status negotiations. Adam, what final negotiations are they talking about?
They're talking about a peace process that does not exist currently. The Palestinians have fully walked away from the table, but really they're referring to a fantasy, right? They're referring to the idea that there is a peace process, that talks have been taking place in good faith. They have not. The Palestinians at every juncture find a reason or demand or something that they can use to walk away from the negotiating table. They talk very nicely in meetings with the Trump administration and various officials saying, yes, we want this, but they actually show no sign or will to make it happen. And I think on your larger point about the violence, there is another argument that recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and bolstering Israel in this region actually will lead to greater safety and greater stability in that region.
Right, right. Well, I just wanted to make sure here that this was the same peace process that the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, said did not exist after Jerusalem was declared as the capital, not declared, recognized as the capital of Israel. The same peace process that the Palestinian Authority won't take part in unless one of their pre-existing conditions coming to the table is that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. Because if the State Department is recognizing that and refusing to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, they have their priorities twisted all up like a pretzel, like you said. Adam, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Our final tipping point of the night, a feminist claims there is no difference between abortion and miscarriage, and I'm here to tell her why she's wrong. We'll be right back with that.